Hello and welcome back to another GCSE revision video. Now, if you are preparing for your upcoming Resit GCSE English Language Paper 1 and Paper 2 exams, you will know that question number 5 in Language Paper 1 is one of the pivotal questions that will absolutely make or break your marks. So what I want to show you, especially if you decide to opt for the image, the descriptive writing question, it could be an image, just so you're clear, or it could be a statement. Most of the time it's often an image. I want to show you how to approach it and write the perfect descriptive writing response that will get you those marks that you deserve and that will get you a pass and a grade 5, 6, 7, 8 or 9, depending on what you're aiming for, second time round after your resits. So I'm going to get into it with descriptive writing. What should you do and how do you craft the perfect descriptive writing in your upcoming resit exams, and how should you prepare for this part of your language paper 1 question 5 exams? By the way, be aware, that at 3 p.m. today, I'm actually going to be looking at descriptive writing in my Resit masterclass. Okay, so obviously, if you need just a bit more support, just simply join in that masterclass at 3 to 4 p.m. I literally am going to be running a Resit class every single Sunday at 3 to 4 p.m. all the way until the Resit exams in November. Let's get into it. How do you approach descriptive writing, and how do you practice in a way that is going to maximize the marks that you ultimately get after your Resit exams second time round? Now, the first tip that I would like to suggest, if you get an image for your descriptive writing question, which is often what you get with a descriptive writing question, is make sure you stick to the image and do not make it a story. Let's say the question that you get is not an image. Let's say the descriptive writing question is just a statement. Say, for example, describe a time you felt abandoned. Stick to that, but still make it descriptive without much movement. Don't start feeling abandoned at the beginning where it's darkness, it's nighttime, and then by the end it's daytime. You've met 5 other characters, you've been on this adventure, and that's your descriptive writing piece on abandoned. Remember that. Either if it's the image that you get or just a statement, because remember that in November exams, the descriptive writing question could be either the image or just simply a statement. Make sure it is static. There is no movement. It's not a story, okay? So don't start in one point and then end in a different point. You keep it very, very static, okay? That's the first thing where a lot of students tend to lose a lot of marks on with descriptive writing. They somehow find themselves in story territory. They somehow start finding that, they need to add a bit more action because it's getting boring. Remember that descriptive writing has to be absolutely static. Do not make that mistake, okay? Now, the second thing you need to be clear on, and this is something that you have to absolutely include in your descriptive writing responses, is what examiners want to see. And these are the top 3 things that you absolutely must include in any descriptive writing question that you write that examiners award marks for. Number 1, always make sure you have lots of vivid imagery. Appeal to the senses. For example, in my upcoming masterclass, I'm going to be looking at a descriptive writing question on a mountain, okay? So that's going to be the image we're going to be looking at in today's class at 3 to 4 p.m. And of course, if you want to see how to write a model response and how to approach this and how to apply all of this, just simply join in. The link is in the description. However, going back to imagery, what does this entail? Remember, you want to talk about sensory imagery, right? What we can see, for example, using really bold and vivid colors. For example, if you're talking about blood, you use words like scarlet. If you're describing, for example, an ocean, you talk about how azure or turquoise the color of the ocean is. You also want to appeal to olfactory senses, what we can smell. Also, you want to talk about, and this is still to do with imagery, and you're tying the imagery to our sensory perception. You want to talk about, for example, the texture of things, what we can hear as well, right? All of that, for example, what you can hear is sound imagery, but also, of course, it's also known as onomatopoeia. All of this is really vital to include in your descriptive writing piece. Examiners are looking for this and they give you marks for this. Equally, this is super important. To be honest, I tell all of my students in my Resit masterclass, don't just keep this to question 5. Use ambitious words consistently in your writing from question 2 all the way to question 5, right? when it comes to ambitious words in question number 5, this is also awarded marks, right? Instead of saying words like sad, say for example melancholic. Happy, instead of words, simple words like happy, exuberant, joyful. Every single masterclass that I start with, I always give my students an ambitious word of the week that I want them to include in order to boost their marks, especially as they're preparing for recess and they don't have very much time. Again, guys, don't forget, you don't have to figure this out by yourself. Literally join in my Resit live class and you can ask me as many questions as you want. And by the way, I also want to mention that if you were doing maths, okay, so if you're doing maths for your upcoming resits, I also have an amazing maths teacher who's also a personal friend called Cheyenne, who's also currently running Resit maths masterclasses, okay? So also if you need some support on maths, just simply join in that maths masterclass, because students who are part of that, which starts in October, are also on the road to passing and doing amazingly in their upcoming maths resits exams. Now, the third and final thing examiners want to see in your writing, and this you must absolutely include, is varied sentence lengths. Remember, with any form of descriptive writing, you need to add a mix of long sentences, no more than 3 lines, and also short, punchy, one-word sentences, or very brief 3 to 4 word sentences. Make sure you have a mix of that to create some movement, but of course you're not taking it into story territory. Now, the third and final thing is, how should you structure your descriptive writing piece? Let's say you get an image, you will see that I've put these circles, right? I call it like the camera zooming method. How do you approach descriptive writing? Always begin in this way. This is my suggestion and this is the structure we're going to be following in today's Resit masterclass when I go over question number 5 and how to write a model response that my students can all use and as they prepare for the resits. Number 1, first paragraph, when you look at the image, or even, for example, you get just a statement for descriptive writing, don't talk about the most obvious thing. Think about what's going on around in terms of the setting, in terms of the weather, in terms of how it feels to be there. Is it cold? Is it hot? Is it daytime? Is it nighttime? That's paragraph number 1, describe that in detail. Then paragraph number 2, describe the atmosphere or mood. Is it ominous and scary, or is it joyful, happy, and so on? That's paragraph number 2 for descriptive writing. Then paragraph number 3, this is where you talk about the most obvious thing you are expected to describe. This is now where you go into town. You describe in lots and lots of vivid imagery, lots and lots of vivid, ambitious language, lots of varied sentences, the most obvious thing in the image, or based on the keywords in the statement that you get for descriptive writing, because it can be a statement. Describe the most obvious thing you are asked to describe. Before your 4th paragraph, personify, create a sense of feeling, right? Maybe you can personify objects, or if there's humans in the image that you're asked to describe, for instance, describe their internal states, their feelings, okay? And then finally, your descriptive writing can have an ever so slight change, but nothing dramatic, such as starts off nighttime, then ends up in the day. Now, I want to end with just 3 pro tips to make sure you pay attention to as you're preparing for descriptive writing. Number 1, and this actually ties to, in this structure, why I always say, describe the most obvious thing in paragraph number 3. The first thing I'd really like to suggest with descriptive writing is don't launch into the most obvious thing. For example, if you get an image, don't launch into the most obvious thing that stands out to you in the image. Create a bit of a build-up, okay? Again, follow a camera zoom method. Describe the less obvious things. Give yourself time to warm up, but also make sure you kind of hold off on the most obvious thing, because you don't want to run out of steam. After you write maybe the first chunky paragraph, you're then clawing around trying to figure out, what else can I add? Try to describe the less obvious and then zoom in, and by your 3rd paragraph, describe the most obvious thing, okay? Then the second tip is, I would suggest a really strong opening, especially when you're describing the setting. Use pathetic fallacy to establish how it feels like to be in that setting, okay? For example, if you want to create a really positive sense of that setting, is obviously you can start with describing the smiling sun, for instance, the beaming sun, or of course, you can talk about the moody fog if you're trying to create a maybe darker atmosphere, okay? And then finally, You must absolutely try to ensure that you don't run out of time. Don't overinvest too much time in descriptive writing, okay? So you want to spend a max of 50 minutes on this question. However, if you found, for instance, on reflecting on your previous exam performance, you had run out of time for this question, work backwards on exam day. In other words, start with question number 5, allocate 15 minutes, but be really strict. Don't spend an hour on this question, okay? Because remember that you still have to answer section A, but start off with that big 40 marker and then work your way backwards in the paper to ensure that you at least have answered question 5, which is worth half of the paper's marks. And if you then answer question number 4, which is worth 20 marks, at least you've secured 75% of these marks. And as I said, you don't have to figure this out by yourself. If, of course, you need support, any questions you have for descriptive writing, or indeed any of your English language paper 1 and paper 2 resits, just simply join in my Resit masterclass at 3 p.m. And as I mentioned, if you are preparing for maths resits, I'm super excited to say that we will be having maths masterclasses from the first week of October, okay? So Cheyenne, our maths teacher, is going to be guiding all of our maths students through passing their resits, but ultimately also for those who are in year 11, year 10, how to pass their final GCSE exams next year and onwards. Thanks so much for listening.